Have you ever walked into someone's home and watched your entire life quietly fall apart? I thought I was just dropping by a stranger's house, just a quick stop, nothing more, but no, I was standing at my husband's other front door. 2 blocks from our home, 2 blocks from the life I thought was real. For 11 years, I was his wife, I raised our daughter, I folded his shirts, packed his lunches, held his hand through life's storms, and I believed him every kiss. Every promise, every quiet moment over dinner, and all it took was one phone call, one wrong number, to shatter it all. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about how close lies can live to love. Closer than you'd ever imagine, closer than you think. I used to think I had it pretty good. A sweet little house on Waverly Street, a solid marriage, a bright, kind daughter, and mornings that began with the smell of toast and the sound of a man I trusted flipping through the newspaper. For 11 years, I believed in the life I built with Aaron Lee. He was dependable. He worked as an accountant, same routine every day. Out the door by 7:30 a.m., back home around 6:30 p.m., a kiss on the cheek. Dinner. A few quiet laughs over TV. We weren't glamorous, but we were steady, and when you're raising a child and holding down a part-time teaching job, a steady is gold, but steady can be deceiving, and trust. Well, trust can be a blindfold. It started with a simple phone call. I was just cleaning up the kitchen, answering calls from parents about a field trip when my phone rang. "Mom, can you bring my soccer cleats? Dad forgot again." I blinked. "I'm sorry, who is this?" "Is this Maya's mom?" "A number, this is Margaret Lay." There was a pause, a sharp inhale. "Oh, I think I got the wrong number." "Oh wait, did you say Mr. Lay? Aaron Lay." A click, the line went dead. Now my husband has a common last name. I tried to shake it off, but you know that feeling when a chill hits deep in your stomach and just lingers. That was me that day. That name, Maya, just clung to me a few days later. Curiosity got the best of me. No. Scratch that, it wasn't curiosity, it was dread. I opened Aaron's laptop. I didn't want to, but something inside me had already shifted. He always left it out on the kitchen counter, open. Unlocked. I wasn't snooping, I was searching for peace of mind instead. I found a flower order, 2 weeks old, sent to a woman named Veronica Lang. The address, Ashbury Lane, just 2 blocks over. I stared at the screen. 2 blocks. I knew that street. I'd walked past it hundreds of times. I thought, no, not Aaron, not here, not like this. But my hands moved before my mind caught up. I grabbed a coat. And the next thing I knew, I was standing in front of a yellow door. The woman who answered was beautiful, a warm smile, soft eyes. She looked about my age. Maybe a little younger. "Hi, can I help you?" I tried to breathe normally. "I'm looking for Aaron Lee. He's not home right now, should be back around 6. He lives here." She laughed softly. "Of course, I'm his wife." And just like that, my world flipped upside down. "I'm his wife too," I said. We stood in silence. Then she let me in. Her home was cozy. Lived in, toys on the floor, a school calendar on the fridge. 2 kids peeked around the hallway. One had Aaron's eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. We sat. She called him. No answer. I told her everything, our wedding date, our daughter, the anniversary he just celebrated with me. Her face turned pale. Her hand trembled. "I knew he was traveling more lately," she whispered. "But I thought it was work. I thought he was working for us." I nodded. I thought the same. 2 women, same man, same lie, different houses, 2 blocks apart. When Aaron came through the door, he froze. He didn't deny it, didn't stutter, didn't run. He just sat down on the floor, like all the air had left his lungs. "How long?" Veronica asked. 11 years. The walls crumbled around me. My daughter was 10. "Did Lily know?" I asked. He shook his head. "No. She doesn't know about them either." "You lied to all of us," I said. He cried, but I didn't. My tears were buried under rage, under betrayal, under a silence that screamed. The story spread like wildfire. The neighbors started looking at me, as if I was the one who did something wrong, Veronica and I. We both filed for divorce. He moved into a motel, but the hardest part was telling Lily. "Daddy has another family," I told her. Each word felt like stepping on broken glass. She looked up, eyes wide and innocent. "Does that mean I have a sister?" Yes, honey, it seems like you do. Did he love them more? What do you say to that? What can you say in court? Aaron asked for joint custody with both families. I nearly fell out of my chair. You want to split your time? Between two daughters. From two marriages. You lied about. He said, they're both my daughters. And the judge agreed. Split evenly, week on, week off, as if that made it fair. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't change the law. All I could do was hold Lily tighter when she came home, answer her questions gently, and pretend I was okay, but I was. 3 years passed, Lily grew, she asked harder questions, she stopped calling him daddy. Started calling him dad. Subtle, but it said a lot. I moved, not far. But far enough, Veronica stayed. Her kids knew the truth too. How could they not? Aaron, he remarried, not to either of us. I guess that's the gift of a man who lives two lives when one burns. He just walks into the next. I stopped asking why. Some answers only lead to more pain. I don't hate him anymore. Hate is heavy. I set it down, but I don't forgive him either. Some things are just too big for forgiveness. I wrote myself a letter once, just to remember who I was, who I still am. You weren't blind. You trusted, you weren't weak, you believed, you weren't foolish, you loved, the lie was his, the healing is yours. I never sent it, I didn't need to, but sometimes, when the house is quiet, I read it again because survival is a story too. And I lived mine. The man who made her fail safe. Have you ever met someone who just fits, like they were always supposed to be there? Like they knew the shape of your life before you did? That was Daniel for me. I met him on a quiet September morning, the kind where the air smells like change. The leaves had just begun to turn. I was standing in line at the coffee shop, my usual spot, waiting on a latte, thinking about nothing in particular, when the man behind me made a joke about the playlist. He had this smile, soft but sure, and when he spoke, it was like he'd known me for years. No pickup lines, no big gestures. Just this quiet calm, like I could finally exhale again, like I didn't have to brace for the next storm. I'd just come out of something painful, one of those breakups where you give so much of yourself, you forget who you were before. I wasn't looking for anything, wasn't ready to fall, I was just trying to stay upright, but Daniel had this way, like he saw the pieces of me I was trying to tape back together, and didn't flinch. We ran into each other again that weekend. At the park, then again. At a bookstore, it started feeling like maybe the universe was nudging me towards something new. We began going on walks, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his dad, how losing him made him move around a lot, made him good at letting go. That lines. It stayed with me 6 months later. He asked me to marry him, nothing fancy, just us. By the lake, a ring tucked in his jacket and a look in his eyes that said, "You're it." I said yes without hesitation, and I meant it. The wedding that felt too perfect. We got married in the spring. His hometown was small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone waves when they pass. Even if they don't know your name, there were oak trees lining the streets, birdsong in the mornings, and faces that smiled just a little too long. His family welcomed me warmly. Almost too warmly, his mama, Evelyn. She hugged me like she was trying to memorize me, not just my face, but my shape, my scent, like she was holding on to someone she'd lost. And his sister, Claire. She kept brushing my hair behind my ear, saying things like, "You're just like her." Then stopping, looking away, biting her tongue. At the time, I chalked it up to wedding nerves, old memories maybe. Families are layered like that. Grief and joy sitting at the same table. The ceremony was beautiful. Sunlight poured through stained glass like a blessing. We said our vows beneath fairy lights. Toasted with champagne. Whispered forever like it meant something holy. I remember the laughter, the music, the way Daniel looked at me. Like I was his whole story finally come true, but even then, even in the beauty of it all, the air felt rehearsed, like every smile had been practiced. Like every moment had a script I didn't know I was in, and I was the only one who didn't know the ending, the picture in the attic. A few months after the wedding, I started digging through old boxes, nothing serious. Just one of those late-night things. A little curiosity. A little nostalgia. I'd lost my parents young. So I didn't have much family history. No stories passed down over Sunday dinner. No baby albums. No roots. I thought maybe, one day, if we had kids, I could give them something, a sense of where they came from, so I asked Daniel about his grandparents. He shrugged it off, said the family tree was too messy, too tangled. Let's not dig up ghosts, he joked. Half laughing, half not, something about that stuck with me, the way he said it like there was something hiding. Just beneath the surface. So one afternoon, when he was out, I climbed up to the attic. It smelled like cedar and dust, like time. I pulled down one of his old photo albums, sat on the floor. Nice tucked under me. I started flipping through birthdays, Christmases, family reunions, and thens. I saw it, a picture, dated 2003, a big backyard gathering, tables, laughter caught midair, children with icing on their cheeks. And right there, in the center of it all, my mother smiling, holding a toddler, a little boy. With Daniel's eyes, I couldn't breathe, the room tilted. My hands went cold, but my heart knew before my mind caught up. I wasn't just in someone else's photo album, I was in someone else's story, the call that broke everything. I didn't sleep that night, I just sat there staring at that photo over and over. Like if I blinked long enough. The image might change, but it didn't. It stayed the same, her smile, that boy, their closeness. The next morning, my hands were shaking when I picked up the phone. There was only one person left I could ask. Aunt Marlene, my mother's cousin. The last thread I had to my mother's side. She answered with her usual warmth, didn't even ask why I was calling. Hey, Auntie, I said quietly. Do you remember if Mom was close with anyone named Evelyn? There was no hesitation, her voice didn't even wobble. Of course, honey, she said. Evelyn's her cousin, they were thick as thieves growing up. Why? I couldn't speak. Couldn't move, just silence, so she asked again, sweetheart, why? My voice cracked when I finally said it. I found a photo from a family reunion. Mom was there, Daniel was there. A long pause, then her voice. Softer than I'd ever heard it, oh sweetheart. I thought you knew, but I didn't know, and Daniel's. He'd always known, the conversation I never wanted to have. That night, I waited until the house went still. No music, no dishes in the sink, just me. And the photo laid gently on the kitchen table. Daniel sat across from me, no words at first, just the picture between us. Like a wound we were both pretending wasn't bleeding. He looked at it, didn't flinch, didn't pretend he didn't recognize it. I know, he said quietly, my breath caught, you knew. He nodded for how long? His eyes met mine since the beginning. There's a kind of heartbreak. That doesn't scream, it just hollows you out quietly. You should have told me. I didn't plan on falling for you, he said, but once I did. I couldn't let you go. My throat burned. You let me marry you without telling me the truths. It's not that close, he whispered. We're third cousins, maybe legally it's. I don't care about the law, Daniels. I said it slowly, every word sharp with truth. I care about trust. He looked down, said nothing, and in that silence, I heard everything, filing for the truth. I left the next morning, no slammed doors, no yelling, just a bag, my keys, and a heart that no longer felt like mine's. I drove until I found a cheap motel. Off the highway, paid in cash, tried to breathe, and thens. I called a lawyer. I wanted an annulment, not because I didn't love him, not because it hadn't been real, but because I needed the world to know that I hadn't chosen this. With the whole truth, I needed it. On paper, that this was not what I said yes to. The courtroom was cold, sterile, like grief wearing a suit. Daniel showed up. But he didn't fight it, he just sat there, hands folded in his lap. Like it was a business transaction, not the end of a marriage. My lawyer laid everything out, the photo, the family connection, the silence that had shaped everything. And still, the judge shook his head. It doesn't meet the legal grounds for annulment, he said. You can proceed with a divorce. I nodded, but inside, I broke again because legally, we weren't close enough, but emotionally, we were tangled in a way I never chose when truth makes you the enemy. I thought telling the truth would set me free, but instead, it made me the villain. In a story I didn't write, his family closed ranks tighter than I expected. They said I was stirring drama, that I'd known all along, that I was unstable, emotional. Looking for attention, I stopped getting invited to gatherings, neighbors, the same ones who brought casseroles after the wedding, started crossing the street when they saw me. Someone keyed my car, another slipped a letter in my mailbox, no return address, just 6 words. Written in shaky, deliberate ink, "Shame suits you, keep wearing it." I held it in my hands. For a long time, not angry, not afraid. Just tired. It wasn't just Daniel who betrayed me. It was the silence around him, a silence that knew. And stayed quiet anyway, that silence. Wrapped its arms around him and left me in the cold. Putting the pieces back. Healing didn't come like a wave, it came in fragments. Small things, therapy sessions, where I spoke in circles until something finally made sense. Walks alone, no destination. Just the sound of my feet and the soft ache of starting over. I started writing again, not for anyone, just for me. Little stories at first, then journal entries. Then essays about family, about identity, about the lies we learn to live with. Just to survive. Some days I cried without knowing why, other days I laughed and felt guilty for it, but little by little, I found her again. Not the version he fell in love with, not the wife, not the girl in the white dress. Trying to believe in fairy tales, but the woman who existed before him, the one with her own rhythms, her own names, her own story. And I held on to her, like she was the only thing I could trust again, because she was, for the one reading this. Maybe you're here because something feels off, because you love someone, but your gut keeps whispering what your heart doesn't want to hear. Listen to it. Not every red flag is loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet ache. You can't explain trust. Real trust isn't just about love, it's about truth. If someone keeps you in the dark and calls it protection, that's not love. That's control. You deserve to know the whole picture before you give away your heart. And if you've already been there, if you've already fallen, already left, already lost more than you ever thought you could, you're not alone. I promise you. You're not. Your story matters, even the broken parts. Especially the broken parts, because silence doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning of your voice. I've lived long enough to know this. Life doesn't always ask for permission before it changes everything. Sometimes it just takes quietly without warning, and when it does, you either crumble or you begin again, even when the pieces no longer fit. This is the story of Claire Bennett, a woman who opened her eyes after 6 years in a coma and realized the life she remembered. It was no longer hers. Claire's last memory was cinnamon toast and the soft sound of her daughter's feet pattering across the kitchen floor. Her husband Mark had kissed her cheek. The house smelled like coffee and rain. She was running late, juggling lunchboxes and keys. Smiling. That was March 18th. They say it was a freak accident, a blown tire, a slick patch of road, and a truck that didn't have time to stop. Claire was 33, a mother, a wife, a sister, and just like that, she was gone. Well, not gone, sleeping for 6 long years. Hospitals are strange places. Time doesn't move the same there. Outside, the world keeps spinning. Inside, everything slows, freezes, visitors come, then come less, then stop. People stop waiting, they adjust. And so they did. Claire's eyes opened on a Tuesday. The nurses called it a miracle. Her body was weak. Her voice barely a whisper, but her mind, her memories were still there. She still thought her daughter was 4. She still believed Mark was waiting. But time had done its work. Her sister Erin was the first familiar face she saw, and even through the blur, Claire noticed Erin looked older, tired, different, and when she hugged Claire, there was hesitation, like someone embracing a ghost. They told her gently, never the full truth. Only pieces. Mark was okay, Leela was growing, everything was fine now, she just needed rest. But rest was the last thing Claire could do. 12 days after waking, Claire saw her daughter again. She didn't recognize her. The little girl she remembered was gone. In her place stood a tall, quiet 10-year-old, with eyes like Mark's, and a smile that felt distant. She called Claire Mom. But it didn't sound natural, it sounded practiced. Claire reached out, Leela took her hand, but her eyes, they kept drifting toward the door, toward the shadows. Then they walked in. Mark and Aaron holding hands, wedding rings shining. Claire blinked, her heart stuttered, no one spoke. Then Mark did, carefully, like someone reading a speech he'd practiced. "Claire, there's something we need to talk about." He continued, "We waited for years, but after 4 years, the doctors, the courts, they said you weren't coming back. You were declared legally gone." Claire stared at him. Legal didn't matter to her. What mattered was the betrayal. "And Aaron," she whispered. Aaron looked down. "I stepped in for Leela. It started with care, then it became more." Claire wanted to scream, but she couldn't, her voice too weak, her body not ready, but her silence. It said everything. Her husband, her sister together, raising her daughter. They didn't throw her out. No, they were more polite than that. Mark offered to help pay for a condo. Aaron made sure the fridge had groceries. Leela visited once a week. It looked kind on the outside, but Claire knew better. She was a guest in her own story. At night, she sat alone, holding memories that no longer belonged to her. Her hands shook as she opened old birthday cards. Leela's handwriting in crayons. Her name barely legible. Claire wasn't even sure if her daughter remembered her anymore. She found a lawyer. Naomi Chang, smart, steady, willing to fight. Naomi told her the truth. Mark had remarried. Legally, Aaron shared custody with Mark. Courts had ruled Claire deceased. The past 6 years. Rewritten without her. Claire nodded. "Then we'll rewrite it again." She filed for custody, not to take Leela away, but to be seen, to be heard, to reclaim her place. Courtrooms don't deal in feelings, they want facts, paperwork, timelines. Mark's lawyers painted him as a heartbroken husband, Aaron's the selfless aunt who stepped up. And Claire, she was the ghost, returned but inconvenient. The judge gave her monitored visits, no overnights, not the justice she dreamed of. But it was a start. Claire didn't vanish again. She took a job teaching art at a community center. Watercolors, pastels, children with trauma, teens with fury, adults with quiet heartbreaks. And little by little, something began to grow. She couldn't undo the past, but she could shape what came next. One afternoon, Leela came to her class not to paint, just to sit. Claire offered her a brush. Leela shook her head. "Can I just watch?" And of course, they sat side by side. Claire painted a tree, gold leaves, red ones too, fall, change, loss, but still beautiful. Then Leela whispered, "Do you hate them?" Claire paused. "Sometimes," she said, "but mostly I just miss what we had." Leela nodded. "I remember the cinnamon toast." Claire smiled, eyes misting. "You do?" "Yeah, it smelled like Saturdays." They sat in silence, then Leela asked, "Can I come back next week?" Claire reached for her hand, squeezed it. "Anytime, baby." Anytime. Years passed. Claire never remarried, never tried to replace what was lost. But she lived, and every March 18th, she made cinnamon toast, one plate for her, one extra just in case. Sometimes Leela came, sometimes she didn't. But Claire, she always showed up, because even if the world tried to write her out, she found a way to write herself back in. The seat at the table may have been forgotten, but she never stopped showing up. I used to think that the worst kind of betrayal came from enemies. You know, people who didn't like you, who wanted to see you fall, but I was wrong. The deepest cut, it doesn't come from a stranger. It comes from someone who knows how you take your coffee, who remembers the name of your childhood dog, who shares your birthday. Betrayal when it's real. It wears a familiar smile. Sometimes it even wears your face. My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 37, I used to have a wife, I used to have a twin brother, and for the longest time, I believed I had a life worth protecting. This is the story of how I lost it all, not in a fire, not in a car wreck. Not through some tragic twist of fate, but through something slower. Quieter, something calculated, and the worst part, it came from the two people I loved the most. It started with a job offer, Singapore, 3 months, big paycheck. Enough to maybe finally buy that little cabin in Vermont. The one we always talked about. Alina, my wife, was supportive. She held my hand when I told her, she smiled, said she'd miss me but she understood. Go build our future, she told me. Her voice was steady, her eyes soft. At least I thought they were, so I left, packed my suitcase, kissed her goodbye, told her I'd FaceTime every night, then boarded a plane. What I didn't know was that while I was halfway around the world, walking into a boardroom, someone else was walking into my home, into my bed, into my life. That someone was Caleb, my twin. Now Caleb and I, we were born looking exactly the same. Identical mirror images, but inside, we couldn't have been more different. I was the planner, the steady one. He was wild, magnetic, reckless. Charming, yes. But in that way, that makes you wonder. What's hiding underneath the smile? We grew up side by side, shared bunk beds, birthday cakes, bruised knees, but somewhere along the way, life took us in different directions. I went corporate. He drifted, bartending, gig work, short bursts of something and then nothing. Still, we stayed in touch. A few texts on holidays, a beer here and there, never in 1,000 lifetimes. Did I think he'd cross a line like this? But he didn't just cross it, he blew it to pieces. The first time I knew, really knew, that something was wrong. It was 2 weeks after I got home, Alina. She seemed different, not in a dramatic way, just a little off. Her smile felt delayed, like she had to remember to wear it, and when she touched me, it felt familiar, sure, but not quite mine, like hearing your favorite song. Played in the wrong key, and then there was Milo, our golden retriever. He barked at me. Milo never barked at me. He wagged his tail at strangers for heaven's sake, but that day, he growled like he didn't recognize the man in front of him. I told myself I was imagining things. Blamed it on jet lag, stress, rust from being apart. I moved on until I found a shirt in the laundry. Same brand, same size, but it didn't have the tear in the collar mine did, and I never wore navy. I asked her about it. She said it must be mine, that maybe I bought it before the trip. I nodded and lied to myself again. Then came the family barbecue. That's when it all unraveled. Caleb arrived late. As usual, he laughed with our parents. Told some joke at his own expense, then walked over. Alina froze just for a breath, a flicker, but I saw it. He hugged her, she stiffened, then smiled, too quickly, too carefully in that moment. I knew. That night after everyone left, I waited when Caleb went to shower. I took his phone, I knew the passcode. It was the same one we used for our childhood bike lock. No messages, no call logs, they were smart, but photos. They weren't smart about photos. There they were, dozens of them, Alina and Caleb, in my house, at my table, in our bed. She was wearing my shirt. He was holding her like I used to. I couldn't breathe. That same night, I sat with him on the porch. Summer air was thick. The kind that sticks to your skin. Crickets chirped like nothing was wrong. How long? I asked. He didn't lie, didn't blink. A few weeks after you left. You pretended to be me. He looked down at first, then she knew, and she didn't stop me. I went quiet. Did you love her? He looked up, his eyes wet. I don't know, maybe. I loved the way she looked at me. Like I wasn't broken. I wanted to hit him, to scream, but instead, I stood up, walked inside, and packed a bag. Alina cried, begged, said she thought it was me, that at first she didn't know, then it just kept going. She said it felt like the way we used to be, that when the truth came out, she was already in too deep. I asked her one question, did you ever stop it? She said nothing, so I left. The divorce was quiet, no fights, no lawyers. Just two people, sitting across a table, signing something that used to mean forever. Caleb tried reaching out, I blocked him. I moved to Oregon, bought that cabin. Alone, people ask me if I have siblings, I say no. They ask if I've ever been married. Once, I say, then change the subject. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't show up with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in quietly. Like a shadow, it sounds like a key that no longer fits. A dog that doesn't wag, a kiss that feels rehearsed, a shirt that doesn't smell like you. I've learned a few things. Trust is fragile, love isn't always enough, and sometimes the person who breaks you looks exactly like the one who used to hold you together. But I've also learned you can survive it, you can rebuild, you can breathe again, and one day you find peace in the places where love used to live. That's where I am now, still breathing, still healing, still me. Even if someone else once wore my face. Title: The Future He Promised. I used to think that love was enough, that if you gave someone your heart, your time, your everything, it would come back around. I believed in sacrifice, in partnership, in building something, brick by brick, even when your hands bled from the effort. But let me tell you a story, not for sympathy, not for anger, but because maybe you've been there too. Or maybe you're standing at the edge of it and don't even know it yet. My name is Alina, and this is how I gave 7 years of my life to a man who promised me forever, while secretly planning it with someone else. Daniel came into my life like a breeze in August. Not a storm, not loud, just quiet comfort. He'd just gotten out of the military. There was this stillness about him, like someone who'd seen too much and finally found a place to breathe. I was 26, working nights at a diner, mornings at a clinic front desk. Life wasn't easy, but it was honest. We met through a friend of a friend. I remember the calluses on his hands, the way he listened, like I was the only voice in the room. We talked about everything. Books, music, broken families, dreams that felt too far to touch. He told me, I want to go back to school, study law, make something of myself. I just need one shot. And I gave it to him without hesitation. We moved in together 6 months later. A small apartment, a peeling paint, a window that got stuck every time it rained. He took night classes, I worked weekends. We said we'd marry later. When things got better, we were a team, or so I thought. Life became a rhythm. Wake up, work, pack his lunch, double shifts. He talked about case law. I heated leftovers. We ate at 9 p.m. Sometimes later, I told myself, this was the grind, the season of struggle. Before the harvest, I paid for his textbooks, bought him a used laptop, skipped vacations, missed birthdays, held his dreams in both hands, while mine quietly faded when he got into state university. We cried when he landed an internship. I hugged him like he'd just won the lottery, and through it all, I never asked for a ring or a promise, just honesty. That's all I ever wanted. It was a Tuesday. Funny how a regular day can split your life in two. I was buying groceries near his office, planning to surprise him with dinner, his favorite chicken with lemon and thyme. Then I saw him across the street, laughing, holding hands with someone I didn't know. They looked comfortable, like they belonged in each other's world. A world I wasn't part of. She wore heels. He wore a coat I'd never seen before. I told myself it was nothing. Work, a friend, a misunderstanding, but the gut, it doesn't lie. That night, he came home late, said he had a meeting. I looked at his face. Searched for guilt. There was none. That hurt more than I can explain. 2 days later, I followed him, not to punish, not to spy, but because I needed truth. More than I needed sleep. I watched him walk out of the firm with her. They laughed, touched, drove to a townhouse I didn't recognize. She opened the door. He kissed her, not a goodbye kiss, not casual. It was a come home kind of kiss. That was his other life. The groceries stayed in my trunk that night, spoiled like my trust. 3 days later, he came home like nothing had changed, dropped his bag, opened the fridge. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just asked, how long? He froze, sat down slowly. Alina, don't do this. How long? A year, he said, just like that. 12 months. I had scrubbed motel floors, skipped every family holiday, borrowed from friends to keep us afloat. For a man who had checked out long ago. Why? I asked. I didn't know how to leave. What he meant was, I was useful until I was. I hired a lawyer, brought receipts, screenshots. Every sacrifice I could document. She was kind, but direct. No marriage certificate, no joint account. Legally, you're strangers. I filed for unjust enrichment, his new fiance's team buried me in legal paperwork. My case was dismissed. Within weeks, no justice, no closure, just silence. I moved out, rented a small room behind a bookstore. My roommate was a retired teacher who made perfect tea and never asked questions. I started my own cleaning business, bought a used car, took Sundays off. I began painting again. I hadn't touched a brush since before Daniel. Months passed, then one day, I saw him at a coffee shop, alone. He looked at me. I tried to smile. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just walked past, and that felt better than any courtroom win. Love should never cost you your voice. Helping someone grow is a beautiful thing. But if they grow and leave you buried beneath them, that's not love, that's convenience. If you're listening to this and you're pouring yourself into a promise that isn't being kept, I hope you pause, I hope you breathe. And I hope you remember. You are not crazy, you are not weak, you are not asking for too much, you are asking the wrong person. I learned that the hard way, but I also learned I'm stronger than I ever thought. And freedom, real soul-deep freedom, comes when you stop waiting for the apology that will never come and start writing your own ending. So that's what I did, and maybe, just maybe, someone else will too. The guest room that took everything. They say betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from those who know exactly where your heart lives, and that makes all the difference. I was married to Evan Hart for 10 years. We had a daughter, Zoe, a bright, curious little girl, the kind who could spot a lie before she could spell it. Our marriage, it was like an old porch swing. It creaked a little, swayed too far sometimes, but it still held us. Until it didn't, one morning over burnt toast and lukewarm coffee. Evan looked at me and said he needed space, not divorce, just space. We weren't screaming matches or slammed doors. We were a slow unraveling, quiet, civil, tired. He moved into the guest room. I moved into survival mode. Then came Marin. Marin and I had been best friends in college. She was bold, magnetic, the kind of woman who made you feel seen in a crowded room. We hadn't spoken in years. Life has a way of getting in the way, but one day, out of the blue, she called. "Hey Lil, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Also, I need a place to crash." Said she was starting fresh after a breakup. No job yet, just her and 2 suitcases. Said she needed a soft place to land. And of course, I said yes, because that's what friends do, or so I thought. She arrived like a breeze, soft words, open arms. Smelling like cinnamon and clove, even Evan looked caught off guard. "Marin," he said, flat, like the name was bitter in his mouth. She smiled wide, "Hey, stranger." And me, I thought nothing of it. The first few weeks, she was a dream. Helped with dishes, cooked sometimes, even got Zoe to eat green beans. She laughed easy, listened well, made me feel less alone. But there were things, little things. I caught her watching Evan when he wasn't looking. Or maybe when she thought I wasn't supposed to be, she asked questions, casual ones. "Do you think he still loves you? Has he been talking to anyone new?" At the time, I thought she was being protective, looking out for me. But the truth, she was drawing a map, and I was giving her all the directions. It was a rainy Tuesday. Evan came home late. I was curled up with a book. Marin was in the kitchen. I heard laughter, the kind that sounds like memory. I peeked in. He was stirring sugar into tea. She leaned on the counter, smiling. "You two seem to be getting along," I said, trying to sound neutral. Marin turned. "Well, we dated once, remember?" My stomach dropped. Dated once. I remembered vague college stories, but not him. Evan didn't deny it. He just looked down at his tea. I wanted to believe it was nothing, just a fling from a different lifetime. But something in Marin's eyes. It wasn't nostalgia. She wasn't remembering, she was reclaiming. Things shifted. Quietly, Evan started dressing better, shaving, switched cologne. The scent I once bought him, Marin, she got comfortable, walked barefoot through the house, wore his old hoodie. I said it was just comfy. One night I walked into her room to grab a charger. Her laptop was open. Files, videos, dates. I clicked one. It was our living room. The camera had been hidden on the shelf. Clips of Evan and Marin talking late at night, of me crying on the couch. Zoe playing in the background. She had been recording us for weeks. When I confronted her, she didn't even blink. "I just wanted a record," she said, "in case you needed to remember how things really were." I should have thrown her out right then, but trauma. It does funny things, makes you freeze. Hope, question what you know to be true. I told Evan. He shrugged, said she was just lonely. And still, she stayed. The divorce came quietly. Evan filed. Said it wasn't about anyone else, just that we weren't working. I signed, didn't fight, didn't cry, because deep down, I already knew I had lost. A month later, Marin made dinner, roast chicken, red wine, candlelight. Zoe was with her grandmother. Marin slid an envelope across the table, inside. Photos, her and Evan on a weekend trip. "I wanted you to hear it from me," she said. "We're back together, it just happened." No apology, just a soft smile, like this was her gift. The house had been mine before marriage, my name on the original deed. But after the divorce, Evan had the option to buy me out. And he did, with Marin. She moved into the master bedroom. I moved into a rented one-bedroom across town. I took my journals, Zoe's school pictures. A plant that hadn't bloomed in 3 years I left behind. A dining table with a scratch from our wedding night. Curtains I picked out while pregnant, the home I built. I stopped answering calls, stopped checking social media. I walked. Went to therapy, learned how to sleep in a bed alone. Zoe adjusted, slowly, kids do. Somehow she asked questions I didn't know how to answer. Does Daddy love Marin more? I told her, Daddy's heart is just different now. What I wanted to say, sometimes people choose chaos over commitment, history over healing, familiarity over faith, but those are lessons for later, in time. I stopped mourning the life I thought I had. I started painting again. Not to impress, just to feel. I kept the guest room key, not because I miss her, but because it reminds me. Next time someone knocks on the door of your life, check what they're carrying. Not all guests bring suitcases you can see. Some bring demolition tools, wrapped in smiles, and some don't leave until there's nothing left to steal. But here's what they don't get. You can lose the house, the man, even the friend, but you don't lose yourself, not forever. And when you find her again, the real you buried beneath the wreckage, you hold her close because she's the only one who never left, not really, not ever. A title, The Man with 100 Names. They say heartbreak doesn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes it arrives with flowers, with kind words, with the kind of love that makes you forget how to be cautious. I wasn't young when I met Nathaniel James Reed. I was 35, grounded, careful. I had loved before, lost before, healed enough to believe in love again, but only if it came honestly. At that age, you don't fall for fairy tales. You fall for stability, for kindness, for someone who feels like home, and that's exactly what Nathaniel felt like. Until everything I thought I knew began to quietly unravel. We met in a coffee shop. Like a scene from a movie I no longer find charming. I was struggling with my laptop. A spilled tea, keys not responding. And he leaned over with a smile. Looks like you've got a sticky situation, he joked. That line. It should have annoyed me, but his voice was gentle and his presence strangely comforting. 10 minutes later, he had not only dried the laptop, but restored a document I'd been working on all week. He introduced himself. Nathaniel Reed, cybersecurity consultant. He didn't push, didn't linger, just smiled, handed me a simple business card, and wished me luck with my work. That night, I emailed him a thank you, and just like that, something began. Our first date was at a bookstore. He let me talk too much, laughed in the right places, told me stories about working with finance firms and tech startups. He didn't talk about his past much, just that he moved a lot for work. That he lost his parents young, that he had lived more lives than most people by his age. I didn't press. We were grown-ups. Everyone has their pain. He was the kind of man who brought soup when I was sick, who remembered my best friend's name, who sent me photos of sunsets when he traveled. I never felt love like fireworks. I felt it like a fireplace, steady, warm, safe within months. He was helping me decorate my living room. He'd stay over 3-4 nights a week. We talked about growing old together, about moving somewhere quieter, maybe raising chickens. Drinking coffee on a porch, it was real, or so I thought. One Friday evening, I was cleaning the kitchen. When his phone rang, unusual, he always kept it silent, but this time, it vibrated against the counter loud enough to draw my attention. Julia W. I didn't answer, but the voicemail picked up. Her voice trembled. Nathaniel, or whatever your name is. I saw the photos. She looks just like me. Does she know yet? The air shifted. Something inside me turned cold. I listened again and again. She knew something. I didn't sleep that night. When he left for a weekend work trip, I started digging. His email bounced back. His company's website, just a landing page, no social media, no friends I'd met, no real past. I asked a friend, someone in IT, to help me search. We found nothing real, but what we did find were forums, threads from other women, stories that mirrored mine, slight differences in name, profession, city, but the same patterns. The same lines, the same vanishing act. I wasn't the first, I was the fifth. I waited until he came back. I had printed everything, screenshots, testimonies, mismatched dates. He walked in smiling, arms open. Missed you, he said. I didn't smile back. I handed him the stack of papers. His face fell. He didn't deny it, didn't cry, didn't panic. He just sat down. I never meant to hurt you, he said softly. I asked who he really was. Daniel Harris. I asked why. Because being someone else feels easier than being me, and I knew right then that no apology could make sense of any of it. I reported him the next morning, and to my surprise, the process was quiet because he didn't steal money. Didn't leave bruises and emotional destruction. Well, it's hard to quantify. He was charged with minor fraud, served probation, paid a fine. I stood in court. Surrounded by other women, we looked different, spoke differently. But we shared the same ache. He walked out of that courthouse, freer than we'd ever be again. People said I should be glad I found out before the wedding, but no one tells you how to grieve a person who never really existed. How to unlearn the laughter, the memories, the touches, how to live with the hollow space. Where trust used to be, I started therapy, I read books. I joined a group for women like me, who'd been emotionally manipulated, and slowly, I rebuilt not just my heart, but my sense of what's real. I don't hate him. I don't think he's a monster. I think he's a man who broke too many pieces of himself and decided to hide inside costumes, but I do pity him. Because no matter how many names he uses, he'll never know what it feels like to be truly loved if you're here. Because something feels off in your relationship. Please, trust that feeling, ask questions, follow your curiosity. Real love doesn't ask you to silence your instincts, and if you've been hurt, if someone took your trust and twisted it, know this: you are not foolish, you are not broken, and you are not alone. Some people wear masks so well, so they forget who they are, but you don't need armor. To protect your heart, you just need awareness, because love is real, but so are lies, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from the person who made you question yourself. I lived just 2 blocks from the truth, and for 11 years I never saw it coming, but here's where it turns. He didn't just lie to me, he built 2 homes, loved 2 women, raised 2 children. 2 lives, stacked side by side like nothing would ever collapse, and somehow he walked away like it was just another story ending, like it never cost anyone anything. And me, I was left with the kind of truth you can't unhear. The kind that hums in your chest. When the house is too quiet, the kind that rewrites everything you thought was real. You know what I learned? Sometimes the ones who say I love you the loudest are the ones hiding the most. They smile with one face and lie with the other. So now I'll ask you, would you rather know the truth and fall apart, or live in a lie that keeps you warm at night? Think about it, because the next yellow door you pass might be yours.